Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to avoid the heat and run inside and do a little gym workout. And then after that, at the request of somebody yesterday in the comments, I'm just going to go through a little bit of my running history and also talk about some of the running goals that I have, for this year, next year, the next 5 years, and, even over the next 10 years. So let's dive into that. So because it's 90 degrees and humid today, luckily I have access to a gym here where I live. So we did a 3-mile run today on the treadmill. Again, it was an easy run. This weekend's going to be 8 miles on Saturday and 17 miles on Sunday. When I go to the gym, I do tend to just kind of do lighter weight, more reps. So I'll do like 3 sets of 12. If I'm doing anything with like bench press or curls, same thing with like single leg squats and things like that. I'll even do like 3 sets of 15 reps. Because I'm not, interested in bulking up or anything like that. I just want to kind of strengthen the muscles and build up the support in the muscles to improve my running at this point. I used to work out more, in terms of trying to build muscle and strength. When I was in college, I would do it just because I was playing, rec basketball all the time, or in high school if we were doing other kinds of sports like football and track. I was a thrower, in high school for track, and also did some sprinting. So it was just more natural to go into the weight room and do that. But I got bored of it, and that's really actually how I found running. So when I started running, I honestly thought I couldn't run long distances at all. Like, I truly did not think I could run any kind of distance over a 5K. I did some sprint races in high school track. I honestly don't even know how fast I was. I wasn't that into it. I did it more because I was preparing for football at the time. I never had any interest in cross country, never had any interest in any kind of 5K, 10K racing, anything like that. So funny enough, I just thought I couldn't do it. I thought it wasn't for me, and I never even had any desire to do that at all. So at some point after college, I just started running casually to stay in shape, running a little bit here and there, 3 miles, 4 miles, a couple times a week, maybe 3 times a week at the most. And then I started to get really excited when I was going for 10-mile runs. And the 10-mile runs were slow. It was, probably like 10, 30 to 11 minutes per mile at that point. I think I'd be really, really happy if I could do, a 5-mile run in 50 minutes, like 10 minutes per mile. That was like a goal that I had for myself. And that was a pretty hard effort. Like, I was really trying back then. This was probably in around 2016, 2017. I was really trying to run 10 minutes a mile, for anywhere even near 5 miles and things like that. So that's when I started to get the bug. That's when I started to, run a little bit more. Again, at that point, it was just to stay in shape. I wasn't racing or anything like that. I was just doing it for fun. So at some point in 2017, early 2018, I moved into New York City. Obviously, New York Roadrunners hosts races all the time throughout the year. And also I just kind of got hooked on running through the city, through seeing people, the buildings, everything. It was new to me at the time. It was fun. And that's when I had signed up for the New York City Half Marathon. It was on March 18th, 2018, for the first year that I ran it. And, at that point I was just starting to train lightly. Like, I had this loose goal of breaking 2 hours in a half marathon. The very beginning of my Strava feed that I can find is I ran a New York Roadrunners virtual race, which was a virtual 5K. And I did it, around a reservoir in New York City. I was living in the Upper East Side. So it was around there. And I actually have my time there. It was a 23:36 5K. And I remember that it almost killed me. Like, I was running as hard as I possibly could. So it was around a 7:36 per mile pace. I was really happy with that. That's the first recorded race I have for New York Roadrunners, the very beginning of my Strava feed. And my training in general is really spotty on Strava. Then I think I was still using Nike Run Club and not really linking anything to anywhere else. So I don't even have the real training data or anything from that point. But I just remember I was running for fun very sporadically still. But I loosely started to think in my head, okay, my goal is to break 2 hours in the New York City Half Marathon. Then I remember I had, this run here. It was the first time that I had gone out for like a 13.1 or so mile run. And I did it in about an hour and 56 minutes, hour and 57 minutes, something like that. And again, it's not official, it's just Strava. But at that point, I knew, okay, I can do it because I just did it out on a run, about a month before the actual race. So then from there, I went in half marathon, was an official time of 1 hour, 58 minutes and 37 seconds. So I had beaten my goal. I did what I wanted to do. And then that's when I was truly hooked. I knew that I wanted to run the New York City Marathon that year. And if anybody knows, which I'm sure a lot of you do, you can't just sign up for the New York City Marathon. I missed the lottery for that year, and I obviously wasn't going to run in 2018. So what I did is I actually found the New York Roadrunners 60K. So I had just beaten my goal for the half marathon in March of 2018. And then boom, I was signing up for a 37 plus mile race in Central Park in Manhattan at the end of that year. So at that point, I signed up, joined a running club in the city, starting out and following a training program for ultra marathons. And I really just started actually dedicating time to running, a majority of the week, running over 30 miles a weekend. I was really committed to jumping straight into the ultra marathon world. And so with the running club that I joined, I started doing a lot of running, on the weekends. There was group runs, organized runs of 20 miles. I was running, over a marathon distance, like 26 to 30 miles, some weekends for long runs. And of course, because, I had just come from that same year doing my first half marathon, I started to have some issues with my knees and my IT band. So at one point, like a month before, I think the actual race, which was in, I think like late November, I had to stop. I had an IT band issue. I stopped running for about 3 weeks to let it heal. And I still went in and just did the race. So here it was. I ran the full 37 point something miles. It was a little slower than I wanted to, but I had, missed the final 3 weeks of training and some of the peak training really just at the 3 week mark. I still have my bib here from the 60K. So that's what it was. If I wasn't already into running at that point from the half marathon, now I was really into it. I had completed a 37 mile race. I was an ultra marathon runner. So then the goal became to run the New York City Marathon. I remember there's one called Greta's Gallop, which is a 10K in Central Park, and that was in October of 2018. And I ran that in 49 minutes, 39 seconds, and I was really happy to run at 8 minutes per mile. Like the pace was exactly 8 per mile. And I remember, at that point in 2018, I was really excited about that. There was a few other races that I ran. The Bronx 10 mile, which is a great race. I'm actually going to be running that this year as well. That was a 10-mile race, obviously, and my pace was 8:36 per mile for a time of 1:25:51. So that was a fun race that year. So that's just kind of some of the things that I was doing throughout 2018, and some of the progress since that very first virtual race with New York Roadrunners. So after 2018, I had done the 9+1 and I knew I was going to be running the New York City Marathon in 2019. I was going to be running the Chicago Marathon in 2019 as well. I had the first race of 2019, which was a 4-mile race. And I even started putting my times on the back. So this one was a 29:47 for a 4-mile race, which was 7:27 per mile. So that was a winter race early in 2019. I ran the Brooklyn Half Marathon in 2019. In 1:42:13. So now I was at, running 7 minutes, 48 seconds per mile for a half marathon, which was great. That was really exciting for me to do that in a half marathon. End of July 2019, I ran a 5-mile race, which was the New York Roadrunners Team Championships, which is kind of like all the running clubs get to race together and you score points based on your position that you finish. So I ran that 5-mile race in 36:49, which was 7:22 per mile. And that was a hot day and it's hilly in Central Park. So I started to kind of get to that point where my 10K times were dropping to around, or my pace for a 10K was dropping to, under 7:30 per mile. Pretty much that got me to the point where I was running Chicago in 2019. The Chicago Marathon was in October, and I ran the time of 3 hours 37 minutes for Chicago. I had a great race overall for my first, really strong, marathon effort where I was running around 8 minutes per mile for the race. And yeah, so that's where I was. Then I ran the New York City Marathon that I had gotten into that same year. And I did that around 3 hours and 50 minutes, I think. So yeah, 3 hours, 50 minutes, 52 seconds. And one of the things that, I forgot to mention is, my overall goal was to break 4 hours in the marathon. And that was kind of back even in 2018 when I was doing the 60K, was I wanted to run in less than 4 hours. So June 2018, the goal was to do 2 hours and a half marathon. By the end of 2018, it was to do 4 hours in a full marathon. And by 2019, like I said, I was already running, trying to go for 3:30. So I progressed pretty quickly throughout 2019. And that was just from, starting to run consistently. I went from not really running to training for a 60-kilometer race to running consistently throughout all of 2019 in preparation for the marathon. And that consistency, a lot of just easy runs, strategic hard workouts and track workouts here and there. But just running, getting out there and running really progressed me a whole lot throughout 2019. And to the point where I was, really doing very well with the Chicago Marathon. I was able to 2-3 weeks later hop back on a bus to Staten Island and do the New York City Marathon and still break 4 hours, which was less than the goal I wanted. And I had just run a marathon. So it was a pretty good, year for me. I think my goal for, New York City Marathon this year is to run it in about 3 hours, 50 minutes. It would be a PR for myself on the course. Obviously, that would be because I ran a marathon just before in 2019, before New York City. So I'm hoping to go into New York City fresh and kind of get a course PR, kind of a cheap one, but still just kind of squeeze that in. And I think I can get there just, again, with consistency of this training block into New York City. Yeah, and then if I can do that, I think the B goal, I'd love to stay under 4 hours again. So what I hope I can do, beyond this year's New York City Marathon is, just keep progressing with running overall. I've run 2 of 6 stars for the World Marathon Majors. So I definitely want to finish, all 6 stars and get that 6-star finisher medal for doing, Tokyo, Berlin, London, and Boston as well. So those marathons are definitely kind of on my calendar for the, next 4 or 5 years or so. That's what I'm hoping to do. Beyond that, I also do want to get back into the ultra marathons again. After 5 years, after I kind of finish out the marathons for the majors, I'll probably start to, stick my toes back in the water of 50 milers, and then possibly use one that's a qualifier for Western states. If they have a good 50 mile or 100-mile race in the area, that's something that I definitely want to do in the next 10 years. And if you can, meet the time requirements, I think I'd love to just do Western states, which is a 100-mile race. And, that's something that I think I would want to try and accomplish within 10 years of now. So that's kind of where I want to go with everything. That's why I want to, continue to document everything here. I just think it's fun for me. It's kind of a way to stay motivated and keep myself, training if I'm documenting everything and, putting it out there for the public to see. So we'll continue training, continue recording, and, that's where I want to get to in the long term.